Welcome everyone to another episode of 10-Minute Poker Tips. As always, please like and subscribe if you like this content. It would really mean the world to me. Today we have a special guest. He just played the World Series of Poker main event, got some amazing coverage. He got a new nickname, which is ziakouski, I think. Is that right, James?
Yep, yes. Dad's ziakouski, I think is how Brent Hicks.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, man. And a really, really impressive run that you made in the main.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, so first, tell everyone a little bit about your background. How did you get into poker?
Well, I was kind of a product of the moneymaker boom, played online for a few years, really fell out after party poker left the US market, really didn't play a whole lot till like the late 2010s and quickly realized that I was way out of my depth. I think it was after an MSPT in 2021 that I realized that there's a lot of good players out there and I don't know what they're doing. So that's when I decided I was either going to stop playing poker, like seriously, or trying to play poker seriously, or get good at it. So that's when I started, investing in trading sites, got a coach. I work a lot with Matt Hunt. I've been working with him for about 2.5 years now,
Nice.
and really just said, okay, I'm going to learn GTO principles and figure out how to apply them in the games that I play. And, slowly over the last few years, I've gotten better, had some results, and kind of culminated in what happened at the main. This is not my full-time job. It's just a hobby that I'm hoping to be profitable at. But a lot of that was doing a little bit of work every day.
Yeah, 20 to 30 minutes a day is actually a lot cumulatively. So for all of you out there who have a job and think you can't study, 20 to 30 minutes a day is more than enough for you to kind of catch up at least and, be competitive. Okay, so let's just jump into a couple of these hands that you played. I know there was one that got you a lot of notoriety. So do you want to start with that one?
Sure. So to kind of frame what happened, this was late day 3, I think level 15. So I get pulled from my seat and get pulled to the feature table. Never played on a feature table before.
Oh my
Never
gosh.
played on a live stream before. I didn't realize what was happening at first until I heard the floor person on the microphone saying, okay, we're bringing him to the feature. I'm just like, wait, what? So it's nerve-wracking, I think, in any context to play, on a feature table on a live stream, but in that scenario, when you've never done it before,
Yeah.
it really was something where I think for the first 20 or 30 minutes, I was just kind of on autopilot, just like not really understanding what was going on. So we are in a spot about 60 or 70 big blinds effective, I would say, hereabouts. Like we cover by a fair amount. We are in the low jack and we open queen 10 of diamonds to 2 big blinds. I'm going to talk about this hand in big blinds. It's just a little easier for you to kind of cut off. The guy's last name is Blumenfeld. Good, experienced player, right? He flats, everyone else folds, and we go to a flop that is ace king 9 rainbow, 1 diamond, and we decide to check. I think that's a spot where I'm just going to probably check, if not range, then very close to it. I've kind of taken that strategy in a lot of these spots, out of position, doing a lot of range checking, or very close to range checking. Cutoff decides to check, which I think is pretty reasonable considering, especially if he thinks my range is uncapped. The turn is the queen of clubs, brings the full rainbow in. And I think at this point, once we decide to check flop, I think checking turn is probably just normal. At that point, I don't think there's any reason to bet. And cutoff bets roughly about half pot. Now I think we have the first decision point in the hand. I think check raise is reasonable. You could kind of put pressure on weak ace X, maybe some stuff like king jack 10. I think call is fine too. I think it's a spot where you can go either way. So we decide to call. I think call is probably a little bit better. And then the river is 7 of clubs, which is pretty much a blank. We check again. And now the villain goes half pot. And I think this is the spot where I realized a couple of things. One, the sizing is a little small for the spot. I would have expected a bigger bet. I would have expected something like pot. I was really just expecting a check back with like a medium ace and losing a lot. But when he goes half, it doesn't feel like it's top of range. And it also doesn't feel like, and it feels like the stuff that like would take this line, this check bet line, we're blocking pretty heavily, right? We're blocking jack 10. We're blocking queen. I think the queen is the really important card.
Yep.
Because now you're blocking queens, you're blocking queen, you're blocking ace queen. blocking queen nine. We're just blocking a lot of the two pair stuff that's thinner valued. I'm just like probably not winning this hand if I call. I just decided let's do like a half pot raise, raised it up to like 150, 150K. He got like 39 into 78. We went to like 150. So roughly half potish raise. I think this is just going to fold out all of his ace X pretty much. And it's going to put like his king, queen nine stuff in kind of jail. And he tanked for, felt like forever, but I think maybe it was only like a couple of minutes, minute and a half or so. And then he finally folds. And he ended up having ace jack offsuit. I think it's kind of an interesting spot where I think it's his size is fine for his line, but I think if he goes bigger, I'm not sure that ace jack wants to bet there that much because if he goes pot, I just probably fold like my worst ace X there a lot. So he's just kind of like value owning himself. But I think at half pot, he could probably get called by some of my king X and bad ace X. So I think his line's okay, but I've talked to a couple people who thought like he should just be kind of just betting pot there, living with the result.
That's interesting. So, yeah, I would say, flop pre is fine. I'm a little surprised he didn't 3-bet given the positions. So was there any, actually you just got to the table, so there's no dynamic between the two of you.
There's no dynamic. It's kind of an interesting spot. With ICM, you should be a little more polar, but
sure, you're very close to the money. That's true. I forgot.
Yeah, you should have fewer flats. But I think in this specific situation, is ace jack, ace queen probably could flat here a pretty decent amount. Low jack cutoff especially. I think there's other formations where he's going to want to do a lot more 3-betting. But I think in this specific spot, I think ace jack off is probably okay.
Yeah, it's obviously a mixed pre. Yeah, I mean, I think a flat is also fine. I also notice that sometimes when I do take a more passive line on the flop on a pretty strong board, such as an ace high type of board, sometimes leading the turn will just clear out people because then they, maybe have called you with like a medium pair or something and you're trying to check down. So, but then I think your line also, like you just said, is perfectly fine because it actually brought way more strength into your river check raise by going check call, check raise. You're representing like absolutely extreme strength. And then this guy obviously has never played with you before, so he must have really been in jail on that river after you did that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting spot. And I think the reason that I like my line a little bit is that sometimes when it goes, that I like my turn check. I think the turn check is kind of the pivotal point of the hand. Because I think when we check turn, we just check it down and win sometimes. When he has jacks or tens or like pocket eights or something like that, just a hand that's just trying to get the showdown. Sometimes we just sometimes it checks all the way through and we just win. But I think if we bet, I don't know how, maybe we get once, maybe he calls jacks and tens once, but that's probably like, maybe like he had like eights or sevens sometimes, but it's kind of a spot where like, I don't think there's any value in betting turn at all. Yeah, and again, like I have no dynamic with this player. I didn't kind of know who he was until, the one thing is when you get pulled in a situation, like you can't use your phone at the table. You have to step away from the table. So it's not like I could go and start looking at jobs of everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So it's also this dynamic where I don't know who these players are.
Yeah.
There's nobody I recognized. There's a couple players that seemed like they were rec players, but again, it's very hard to tell at a moment.
Yeah, I mean, regardless though, I mean, just showing up at your very first feature table where you were, quite disoriented, just sitting down, playing out of position in this kind of pot, near the bubble, really still an impressive line.
I felt I had a lot of bluffs that I ran in the mean that I felt were not great.
Yeah.
And I got away with. This was not one of them. This was one I felt fairly confident in.
Okay, so I think you had another hand that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so this one was actually earlier. So we are day 2, pretty late. So we're playing 1K 1500 in level 9. So middle position, who's an unknown. Seems like he's kind of an aggressive player. I'd had a brutal early day 2 table, but they broke Paris and we moved to the horseshoe, which was kind of the best thing that happened to me. Middle position opens off 80K. We're playing 1K 1500. And so he opens to 3K. We defend the 10-8 offsuit, 10 of spades, 8 of clubs. Flop is 8 of diamonds, 7 of spades, 4 of diamond. And we decide to lead, which I'm not really a big fan of in retrospect. And villain calls. Really, we're supposed to, you can lead here, but you're really supposed to lead the rainbow 874. Usually the two-tone 874s you don't want to, and also villain could have 6-5, which kind of makes this a little bit awkward because villain could actually have the nuts here.
Yep.
Usually don't necessarily want to lead on boards where the villain can have the nuts.
Yep.
Turn is ace of clubs, checks. He bets like roughly half pot, he bets 7K. We decide to call. And the river is interesting. The river is the Jack of Hearts, and he checks, and we check, and the villain bets 25K, and we're kind of in an awkward spot where, and it really came down to the scenario is like, how much ace X does villain have, and how often is villain taking this line with this size with an ace? And that was kind of what was going through my head, right? Is
Yeah.
that like if villain has a hand like ace nine, is villain like really going hot here, just effectively what he went? Or is this kind of polar where it's like his best ace X? Is this like ace jack or better? And then like bluffs, right? Because it does
I mean, it does feel
plus.
that way because it would be very tough for him to take this line with something that's not an ace, right? So it's got to be what he's repping. Seems very
Yeah,
polar.
yeah. So it really came down to this kind of scenarios that like we have an eight, so we're blocking, stuff like the two pairs, we're blocking AC, we're blocking Jack eight suited, which could be in there. We're blocking 8-7. If 8-7 doesn't raise flop. We also have a 10, so we're blocking 10-9, which felt somewhat relevant in the moment. So we covered by a lot. We had like 250K to start the hand. So
Yeah.
maybe it was a spot where I was a little bit okay with the idea of taking a chance in a spot that's maybe not that great, maybe probably break even at best. And so we flick him to call it. And he shows up with queen 10 off, which actually seemed like it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like it seems like if you're gonna have a bluff, I think I remember he did have a diamond. So he was like,
Backdoor
he was
diamond.
like
Yeah.
queen kind of like turned backdoor diamonds and
Yeah. So I think that was a pretty good range construction because you're right that if it was a hand like Jack 10, he hits that Jack on the river, he's almost definitely checking back for showdown value, right? So then it just becomes very polarized that ace X to pair potentially sets.
yeah.
Yeah, well played. Before I guess your study GTO, were you able to construct ranges and this type of analysis like this and bet sizing and all that kind of stuff?
No, not at all. And I have still a long way to go, right? Like, I mean, I could probably point you to dozens of hands that I played with, even in the last year, right? That where I've either missed-sized or picked bad bluffing candidates. So, I mean, I have a long way to go. I don't ever pretend that I know all the answers, but what's starting to click now are kind of the concepts.
Yeah.
Understanding what's a big bet, what boards are big bet check boards as opposed to range bet boards, understanding the concept of blocking and unblocking a lot better, being able to kind of tease out what ranges and then kind of adjusting those ranges for player types,
Yeah.
right? The fun thing about poker is that it's a game that it's not solved, right? So
That's right.
there's always like opportunities to learn and get better.
Yeah, and you have so many players out there, very good players who are not actually that GTO, or maybe they have studied it but sort of thrown most of the concepts out and sort of play their own way. And they're still showing a lot of success. So I think that's the nice thing about poker is there's not a super standard way to play, but I do feel like, these days, if you don't, or at least not knowledgeable of GTO, you're probably going to be falling behind a little bit.
I think the great thing about GTO is that like learning it, at least understanding the baseline, you could take that baseline and adjust it to however you want. Like because you could and node locking, like in things like GTO Wizard, that was kind of the aha moment.
Yeah.
You realize that if people are, for example, like too passive, you get to kind of bet with impunity. If people are too wide, sometimes you can bet with impunity because their range is too wide. So it's just kind of understanding that using GTO and using kind of solvers as a way to construct a strategy. The challenge always is just figure out how to execute that strategy in real time.
Yeah, 100% that makes sense. And I think you're doing a pretty good job promoting GTO and probably Matt Hunt's services as well.
Yep. Yeah, he's got a great site, pokerfluency.com. Excellent coach. Highly recommend.
That's great. Well, James, thank you so much for your time. And again, congratulations on the main event run. Congratulations on your coverage. I thought you did fantastic, not only in the hand, but also in the interview. And I hope we see big things from you. Do you actually get to play at home very often?
Yep. So I live about 25 minutes from Grand Falls Casino in Larchwood, Iowa.
Okay.
They run MSPTs twice a year, but otherwise,
Nice.
I'll go on Sunday to play the Sunday $100 Sunday tournament the way I always do. It's just, as I said, I love the game. I love playing poker, and sometimes the stakes don't matter. It's just playing the game is the fun part.
Okay, James. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.